So if most of you have probably seen it by now, but if not, there was a press release that went out a couple weeks ago. Got some exciting times coming for us in June, where some of the large players are going to be publishing their Quad A records for their main WW site for a day to see, kind of keep track and see what is going to break and make sure that we're all ready for when we actually are forced to run all of our websites dual stack. So with that, who's coming for Phil? Okay, let me introduce Phil from the Internet Society.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming. We're excited to talk about.
Phil, let me do these picture slides. That's my job. No, my lord. Let me put it here. Hey, folks. There we go. There we go. No problem. Okay, so our World Day. Someone. Do you have different?
No, that's it. Let's start. Thanks again. We're happy to be here to talk about the World IPv6 Day that will happen on June 8 of this year. John Brzozowski was planning to be here, but he was caught between doing a dual stack rollout and some bad weather and sends his regrets. We have Leslie Daigle from the Internet Society, who's going to be talking about the event overall. Igor Gashinsky from Yahoo, who's going to be talking about why this is important for them, and Patrick Gilmore, who will be talking about why IPv6 is important for them and what their strategy is. We want to do this as sort of 3 mini sessions. We've got 45 minutes. I think each of the speakers is going to spend about 10 minutes. And if you have questions for any one of the speakers, if you would hold them for the end of that, but do it not for the end of the session, just for the end of who's speaking. So we'll hand it over to Leslie now.
Thanks, Phil. And as Phil said, I'm going to give a bit of an overview of the day and why we care about it and why we think you should too. So it really is June 8th, all of it in universal time, at which point major content providers have agreed to turn on IPv6 on their front doors, not just on their side doors, as often is the case today. It has nothing to do with turning off IPv4. It really is about an opportunity to both motivate organizations across the internet service providers, carriers, content providers, et cetera, and users to prepare themselves and their services for IPv6 and to ensure a successful transition to an IPv4, IPv6 world. It's really an opportunity to collaborate, to test readiness, and it's really about laying the groundwork for what we hope will be large-scale, long-term deployment of IPv6. I will note this is not a first. It's certainly the biggest so far, but other entities in other parts of the world have organized similar events, so we have a little bit of an idea of what we're getting into. So, why we care about it. So the Internet Society, we believe that the best Internet is one with continued global addressing. I think everybody in this room understands pretty well that if you want to have continued global addressing, IPv4 is not the way of the future, so v6 is where we want to get to. The point of having the day, and the point of why we're supporting it, is to help accelerate IPv6 deployment. We believe that 2011 is going to be a pivotal year for IPv6 deployment, not the least of which is because as of this week we're running out of IPv4 addresses for reals. And we think that the World IPv6 Day is going to be an important milestone in that as well. IPv6 has to work if we're going to exit 2011 into a future globally connected internet and not just a network. And it must work not just technically. It has to work for businesses. It has to be business viable, and it has to have a lot more visible traffic and usage ultimately. So far, everybody's known this at an academic level, understood it hypothetically, but it's been a bit of a moving target to really try to say, okay, this is the deadline by which I need to get myself prepared, or it's just been a bit of a moving target. It's going to be much easier to set up and test your own config in the light of a specific date, and it'll be a lot easier to measure actual impact of v4, v6 coexistence with an event like this from our perspective. So, what we have seen already since the press release a couple of weeks ago, there's been lots of interest from all over, which is certainly good news. We've had interest from content providers, ISPs, websites, about 125 people, entities overall. We have websites listed on the official webpage for the day. We're creating space for sites who are running dual stack already, that is, who wish to be recognized for their efforts and recognized as places you can go visit if you are testing out your IPv6. And we will be creating space as well for the 25 or so networks and hosting companies who offer commercial v6 and who are interested in helping their customers participate. So clearly there's interest for them to get more customers, but interest for us to help direct people to get the resources that they need. There are a lot of people around the globe who are organizing their local region. We already have links in Japan and Slovenia organizing local resources and planning for material and information available for the day itself. So essentially so far we've already had interest from all over the globe. So it really will be a World IPv6 day. So this is what we hope to see on June 8th. Nothing. It should work, right? All right, well, okay. We'll be doing some measurement. Well, people will be doing some measurement. In the meantime, if you want to test your IPv6 readiness, you can test it out at testipv6.com. And we will be updating the page to point to various activities that are going to be, various groups that are going to be measuring what happens on June 8th, measuring connectivity from different perspectives, brokenness, etc. And I believe Igor is going to talk a little bit more about what kinds of brokenness we're talking about measuring. So here's the URL for the actual website for the day. It's got information for what you need to know if you want to come play. Website owners, what we're looking for is the URL of the website that you intend to make available, contact info for a network engineer, because although we do hope it all works, we still need to be able to work this out collaboratively. And we're looking for a web page describing why IPv6 is important for you and your business plans. This isn't exactly free advertising for your website. We really do want collaboration here, so stand up and raise your voice for why IPv6 is important. For network operators and hosting companies, we're looking to see if you've got a commercial IPv6 service offering, and again, a web page describing why IPv6 is important for your business, so on and so forth, and we'll link to that. The website, our website, does contain a little bit more information about what you need to think through before you stand up and decide that you want to be visibly part of this, because, of course, you want to make sure that your networks continue to work through the day. So certainly contact us if you're interested in participating. There's contact info on that website. Contact us if you're planning to do some measurements or testing on the day. We'd certainly like to know about that and help coordinate that as well. And certainly the main players that we announced at the beginning of this month are global companies with global content that happen to be largely situated in the U.S. We are definitely looking for large content providers in other regions of the world. Really help us make this truly a global IPv6 day. Thanks. Any questions? Cool.
So I'm Igor with Yahoo, and I'm going to talk about our involvement in IPv6 Day and a general content provider perspective of it. So first of all, why are we doing it? We're doing it to promote the IPv6 adoption. We're doing it to show that it's possible, it's doable, it should be done, and we're also trying to break the chicken and the egg paradigm. So, you can't hear me. Basically, we had a lot of people going, hey, we want to turn off V6, we have, we need content, we're going to, for us to spend all the effort into enabling V6, we need actual users. So we now have a date that is set for, and we want to have users, and we're going to have content. This is also a last-ditch effort to break the broken users problem. There's a URL that you can't see that well, but it's there in the slides. It's a Erin Wiki get IPv6 info that lists a lot of causes of those broken users. Most of it is operating systems thinking that there is V6 when V6 isn't working on the end user. The current breakage stats are about 0.026%. 18 months ago, this was 0.078%, so it's a huge improvement. No, right. Oh, better. While that number seems very low and perfectly acceptable, 0.026% for a global content provider like Yahoo translates to roughly 156,000 users. We fully expect that the 156,000 users will not be able to get to us well on World IPv6 Day. And we're also, one of the reasons we're doing this is a last-ditch effort to remove the need for whitelisting. As long as the breakage stats are above 0.01%, there's absolutely no way that we could go dual stack in a full production scenario. Hopefully, 6 months awareness, more things getting fixed, the numbers will drop enough, and if not, perhaps there's going to be enough press generated by World IPv6 Day and by users breaking that they will actually get fixed. And the other reason for World IPv6 Day from a content provider perspective is it removes the first implementer penalty. If Google are the only ones to enable IPv6 or dual stack and nobody else is, then those 156,000 users will go, www.yourwebsite.com, not working. Competitor. Oh, competitor is working. All right, I'll just use the competitor. This way, hopefully all of us are part of World IPv6 Day. The user goes, yahoo.com. Well, that's not working. Google.com. Must be Yahoo. Google.com. That's not working. That's funny. Let me go to Facebook and, tell all my friends about it. Wait, Facebook's not working too. I wonder if it's me. And that's kind of why ISOC has organized this, so enough of us are getting into this. We want the user to be aware that he has a problem. Or we want the user to go, nothing happened, awesome. So how does this affect a lot of people? Well, content providers, first of all, please join this effort. The level of work for you may be minimal, may be a lot, depending on your architecture. What Yahoo is doing is we will be serving dual stack for www.yahoo.com and all the internationals for it, that we can relatively easily do it. There are some internationals where we will not be able to offer dual stack due to country level issues. We're doing this strictly for HTML, so images and ads are still going to be served over v4. But at the very least, the first entry point is going to be dual stack. If you're a content provider, don't forget to consider 64 and Teredo users. Not doing so may cause a lot of extra penalty in terms of latency. Not saying do something about them, just consider your effects are and consider how you can mitigate it. And you may choose to mitigate it, you may choose not to mitigate, you may choose to mitigate 64 but not Teredo. That's really your choice, but just think about it. For ISPs out there, obviously please deploy V6. You may want to staff up your help desk on that one day to deal with the broken users. And I'm going to plug testipv6.com one more time. It was written by Jason Fessler, who is one of my coworkers, and it is a great tool for end user troubleshooting. And also for ISPs, please think through the impact of 64 and Teredo on your networks. I know of at least one network who didn't at first, and all of a sudden found that they're backhauling a lot of traffic across country to a certain Midwestern university because they were choosing their 64 relay. If you don't know how to deal with this, the very nice, kind folks at Hurricane Electric are, always. Where's Martin? Yeah, Martin, right there. He is always happy to talk to you about it, tell you what issues you may run into or whatnot. For end users, please upgrade and patch your systems. It's amazing how many things are fixed in the very latest and greatest releases. So please do so. And obviously for OS and software and equipment vendors, we've reported a lot of bugs to you guys. It would be the more of them you address before World IPv6 Day and get out to your users, the less users are going to be affected. So please, please, please fix the issues, and a lot of them are documented on the wiki page that I've linked to before. So, questions?
Dave Meyer. Igor, cool. Nice presentation. I'm wondering, have you guys considered putting up like sort of an FAQ somewhere? Like I was thinking, what is it, testipv6.com, I mean, a lot of people probably like to know about that, and not everybody actually watches I know this will be a shocking thing to you, but not everybody watches the video archive of, the plenary session at NANOG. And that kind of information would probably be very useful and maybe lighten up the load on help desks if you could put it out there somewhere. Like put a URL on nanog.org or something.
We send Jason sent an email to the NANOG mailing list about it. The URL is linked off ISOC's World IPv6 Day. If NANOG wants to link to it, sweet. Please.
Let me add one thing, Dave. There is an FAQ on the website for the day. So if you want to look at it and see if there are things that you think would be useful to add, we're happy to take into hand.
And there is an FAQ on testipv6.com as well.
Igor, Jared, how are you doing? So, I'm all the way over here. So, I'm wondering if IPv6 Day goes well, what's the barrier threshold for you from extending it from IPv6 Day to IPv6 2 days? Or are you just going to pull the plug after a day no matter what?
We're going to pull the plug after a day no matter what because we can't measure brokenness while we're running dual stack. So what we're actually hoping to gain out of this is stats the day before, then stats the day after, and see if there's been a delta in the broken user problem. If the brokenness has dropped below a certain threshold that we have decided, then there's nothing stopping us. If the brokenness is still this high, we will have no choice but to do whitelisting.
Okay, I hope you review that choice. Thank you.
Jason Schiller, Verizon Business UUNet. I have two questions for you, Igor. The first one is you talked about the broken host problem. Have you looked at the testipv6.com site, and do you believe if that gives you a green light response that you will not be affected by the broken host problem you described?
I have looked at it. Like I said, Jason Fessler is one of my coworkers. And a lot of the test cases are actual things that we, similar methodology to how a lot of people measure brokenness. There's only one scenario that we found so far that website doesn't catch, and we're not quite sure how to measure it, and that's if you've configured a SOCKS proxy on your browser, and that SOCKS proxy is v4 only. We haven't found a good way to capture the test case. If you're not using proxies configured in your browser, that website should capture everything else.
Great, thank you. My second question was, you talked about recommending to ISP they think about the impact of using 6-to-4 and Teredo, but you haven't talked about any of the other transition technologies.
It's more of 64 and Teredo are, it's not using, it's that their users are using it. It's not the ISP so much. And if the users are using tunnels to HE, then there's not much the ISP can do about it. look at all the transition technology, I think 99% of transition traffic is 64 and 280. If I'm wrong, please let me know. But just try not to backhaul the user all the way across the country or possibly to another continent because you didn't think about something for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Cool. Now, Patrick.
Why are there two Akamais here? One's a PDF. It's actually much harder to see this screen than it is that screen, believe it or not. And the mouse is really fast. I know this will come as a shock to all of you, but I'm a little sleepy, and my voice is a little dead. I'm sure no one here can figure out why that is. So my name is Patrick Gilmore. I work for a company called Akamai Technologies. We are CDN. We have almost no content of our own. We do have www.akamai.com, which, by the way, has a v6 bug on it, so if you all go there, we can collect info on the Nanog network or something like that. But very, very few people visit that. However, we have a little bit of content from other people. So the problem with that is that we have no agenda. Well, we have an agenda, but we have no agenda that we can push because our customers pay us to do certain things. So if they tell us, do V6 or don't do V6, then that's what we're going to do, and we don't really get much of a voice in the decision. We can suggest things, but we are a service provider. We don't get to decide what to do with our customers' own content. We do understand V6 is critical to the Internet's future. I know that sounds like marketing speak, but I actually wrote that line because I believe it. I think it is critical, which is sad but true. So we're working to make this transition as seamless as possible for our customers. The idea is that the customer should be able to just go, please V6ify my web page, and then they don't have to do anything. So we're doing lots of stuff like allowing them to keep a v4 origin host, and then we'll go back, we'll see the caches over v4 and then serve the end users over v6, for instance, and things like that to make it as seamless as possible. And we're hoping that will help a little bit of the hump to get to v6, if people can just sort of switch it on without doing anything themselves. Plus, to be perfectly honest, I want to make money off of it. So we agree that v6 day is necessary. We've been an integral part of it from late stages, but long before the press release. We obviously want to see what actually happens. Empirical data is much, much better than a lot of guesswork, and a lot of people out there right now are guessing. Igor has some stats, or Yahoo has some stats, and some, Google has some stats, and a few others do. But a lot of people are just saying, well, we think this will happen, and so we'd like to actually see what happens. So we're here to support anybody who wants to do v6 on the Akamai network. Obviously, it's going to help them find and fix broken end users and the chicken and egg problem. The last two are the big thing. Everybody talks about chicken and egg. Oh, we don't have enough content on v6, so no users will be on v6. So we don't have enough users on v6, so there'll be no content on v6. The reality is that there'd be plenty of content on v6 if there weren't broken end users. That's the real chicken and egg. It's not that there isn't any content on v6. It's that nobody wants to put their content on v6 because, Yahoo, Google, Akamai, ourselves, we don't want to lose, $1 million a day or whatever for those 100,000 users that suddenly disappear and then clog our help desk lines. So we're hoping this will get us to a point where we can go ahead and get past that hump. So the way Akamai is trying to do this is we are trying to map both internets. People think of Akamai as a caching company, but what we really do is figure out which web server goes to which end user. There's two internets. Everybody here is probably aware that v6 and v4 don't look alike. It turns out a few nanogs ago I said that the v6 net looks like Swiss cheese, only it's the holes, not the cheese. And it's getting better, but it actually still looks like that. We have some test data. Akamai has served v6 traffic, and we looked at it, and we took, for instance, a little under 10,000 name servers picked randomly in the United States and decided when they would ask for a host name, we would give them a v6, a quad A instead of an A, and see what would happen on our test network, not on customer stuff. The latency was nearly double. I actually had to bring up my iPad so I could have the actual numbers. the latency was 48 milliseconds for v4 and 87 milliseconds for v6. I don't know how many of you actually use Akamai, but nobody pays Akamai to slow stuff down. That's just not what they're trying to do on the Akamai network. And it's not what we're trying to do either, but that's a huge, huge slowdown. And if you look at the tunnels, it's even worse. And a lot of people go, well, why are you measuring tunnels? Well, we, like I said, we have a web bug on Akamai.com, which I fully admit there's a little bit of selection bias there, but we get some hits on it. 89.4%, that's almost 90% of all v6 users coming to the Akamai website are through tunnels. I mean, there's essentially no one who's native. I mean, 10%, 10.6%. It's just not worth talking about. So until we get these problems solved, until we can, either get tunnels in every single pop and, everywhere, or if we can get more native v6, then there's going to be these adoption hurdles. People don't want their website to slow down to adopt v6, and this is a problem. So what Akamai is planning to do is we're going to go ahead and map both internets. We're going to see how fast the v6 is, how fast the v4 is, and when somebody comes to us, first we're going to have technology to figure out if they're v6 enabled. If they're not, obviously they get a v4 address. That's easy. If they are, then we'll do a measurement, and we'll figure out, okay, will v4 be faster or will v6 be faster? Sorry, I'm having trouble talking. Can't imagine why. But we'll hand out the one that's faster, and we'll let customers have a knob to figure that out. Oh, if v6 is within 10%, go ahead and hand out v6 or something like that. So we are trying to do everything we can to push this along and give the customers every option they can. But at the end of the day, it's still the customer's website, so we have to do what they say. And that's, I think, our strategy, hopefully in a very condensed nutshell. Obviously, you can't take an entire corporate strategy that took a year to do and say it in 5 minutes, but hopefully that gave you some idea. I was worried Dwayne was going to ask a question. He's always scary. Yes, sir. Far left.
My name is Chris Welty from Switch. We host an Akamai cluster in Switzerland. Mm-hmm. And my question is, are you going to turn on v6 also for non-US deployments? Or?
Yes. In fact, most of the Internet exchanges that are currently v6 pairing are not in the United States. I should say, by the way, I don't remember if I said this, the 10,000 name servers or just under 10,000 name servers we picked were in North America, so those numbers were North American. But we are rolling it out worldwide. It's just we have 1,700 POPs in 72 countries. It takes a little while to ask every single one for a v6 address and then go and reconfigure the servers. But hopefully, cross your fingers, every single Internet exchange should have v6 by the end of this quarter. I know I said that for last quarter, but this quarter really should be done. And we're trying to get all of the Akamai nodes inside of networks and transit nodes v6ified, shortly thereafter. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Masato Yamanishi of Japan Telecom America. Can you go back to last slide?
Yes, sir.
Regarding last technique, will you use this technique on IPv6 day or not?
Again, we do whatever our customers tell us to do. So we have some customers that told us to just dual stack, and we'll do that. And we have the capability to do that on a per host name basis. So customers who tell us to dual stack and pay no attention to the telemetry, we'll do that. If they tell us to do this, we'll do this.
Okay, thanks.
No worries.
I wanted to ask a question about the same thing as
Who are you?
Cindy Moore. Oh, Dave Meyer. I was already up here once. Didn't that stick? No caching. Okay. All right. It's all South State, apparently. Can you say anything more about how you're going to rank an IPv4 and A versus a quad A destination? I mean, I don't know if is it just like RTT, packet loss? I mean, how are you going to do that? Or if you can't say, that's cool too.
Well, the way Akamai decides these things is a complex algorithm, which really comes down to a score. And we literally just have a number, and we pick this one or that one. But the number is a combination of latency, packet loss, and throughput. The standard stuff. If you have 1 millisecond, but you've only got 500 kilobits, then obviously you don't want to use that path. If you have 40 milliseconds and 50 milliseconds, and the 40 milliseconds has 10% packet loss, we'll pick the 50 milliseconds, et cetera, et cetera. So the score is pretty anybody who's really interested in can come talk to me, but it's pretty well established, and we're going to use the exact same algorithm for v6 that we're currently and have been using for v4 for a decade.
That was kind of the question I wanted to ask, because what we've seen before is, sort of preferential ranking of IPv6, for example, when resolvers used to choose IPv6 first because we're trying to, get people to use it, right?
Yeah.
But you're going to use the same algorithm. So.
Well, that's what we're going to suggest. But again, whatever our customers tell us to do, that's what we're going to do. End of day, if a customer forces us to do, v6 only within the limitations of the system itself, that's what we're going to do.
Patrick, Jared Launch from T America.
You need to come closer, dude, because you scare me when you do that.
I'll scare you later. So I wanted to see if you can talk about how you've been promoting to your customers, and how many of your customers are actually going to participate in IPv6 Day. Because I think that's one of the key components here of that, if you're getting customers requesting dual stack enabling or enabling just for the day, to get an idea of the sense of that is going to help a lot of us understand the support queries we're going to get. Because if it's Yahoo and Google and a few other providers, that's going to be pretty well defined. But if everyone starts having problems with like their semantic updates, I don't know if you can share those customer names, but I would love for you to have the ability to pass those up to ISOC or someone else so we can get an idea of the scope of the testing. Can you share anything about that? What percentage of your customers, et cetera?
So first of all, I really like the idea of passing the customers that are going to enable v6 on v6 Day to ISOC, and I will take that back because honestly, that never occurred to me, and I don't know if marketing is doing that or not. So thank you for that. Truth of the matter is, very few customers have asked us. Before 2010, I can count on one hand the number of customers who asked us for v6, and we have 4,000 customers. So we're talking 0.1%. In 2010, that went up slightly. It was in the double digits. 2011, a few more have asked us. But honestly, one of the reasons that we don't have a full-blown v6 strategy this moment with v6 enabled everywhere and we're just doing like web bugs and stuff is because there's very few customers. You can go down to back to like count on two hands the number of customers that are really pushing for it. Most of the ones that ask for it, they're kind of like, we've heard about this v6 thing. What is that? And so we are doing the opposite. We've trained all of our sales staff. They're going out and they're telling customers, by the way, we're going to have v6. And we're, like I said, we've already served v6 content, but it's all testing from Akamai stuff. We're going to have about a dozen customers on what we call a tech preview, which is kind of like an early beta. And they have to agree that they're not going to get mad at us if it slows things down and stuff like that. And that's going to be v6 only host names. But that's going to be very soon, next 30, 45 days, I think. I'm not sure. But by the time of v6 Day, any customer that wants it should be able to get it. I don't want to make promises at a podium in front of 600 of my closest friends, but theoretically, any customer that wants it and asks for it and should be able to have it by v6 Day.
Excellent. Thank you. Are you planning on keeping the TTLs longer than 24 hours on any of these DNS names?
The standard Akamai host name has a 20-second TTL.
Perfect. Thank you.
Rob Seastrom, Affiliates. When you say that things are coming in over tunnels, just about everyone is coming over tunnels, do you mean 2002/16, 6-4, or do you have additional secret info about who's running 6RD and, your odd 6-in-4 tunnel and things like that?
So it says,
so can it be broken down?
And only 10.6% of them had a native IP address. That's what I know. Sorry, I didn't actually do this testing. I asked somebody for the information, and they gave me this information.
I would be curious to know that in a little finer detail.
If you remind me afterwards, because for some reason my brain's not working very well this morning, I will be happy to look it up for you.
Thanks.
That was a really lot of questions. I'm feeling like I did not explain things well. So if anybody wants to come and ask me afterwards, feel free. And I guess that's it, because I don't see anybody at the mic. Is Jared up there? No, he's not. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Thank you. If anybody had any other follow-up questions, I'll just go ahead and get up to the mic. We have a few more minutes. I actually had one question for Igor, if you don't mind. This is Donnie Roisman from SoftLayer. Can you describe in a little bit more detail what it is you're doing to measure IPv6 brokenness for your end users? And is there any information that you have that or any techniques you have that you can make available to other websites that want to gauge how much brokenness their end user base might experience?
Sure. So again, I'm going to plug test-ipv6.com. The source code for that is actually, most of it is open sourced. It's not quite at a point where you can download it and quickly integrate it, but if you have a decent level of SA skills, you can download the source code and integrate all the testing that it's doing into your website. And then all you do is process logs.
Is that what Yahoo is using to measure brokenness for their visitors?
We're using that kind of a technique. We're not using that code because it takes some time for a company the size of Yahoo to go through all the legal channels to open source something. So once we figured out the methodology, Jason on his own time wrote the code that test-ipv6.com is using, and somebody else wrote the code that Yahoo is using for testing. Just because the infrastructure that we have in place, is a little different at Yahoo.
Any other questions? Going once? Going, okay. Looks like we have there we go.
Jason Schiller, Verizon Business UUNet. So in the spirit of trying to get people to adopt IPv6 sooner rather than later, which I think is the goal of World IPv6 Day, what do you tell end sites and transit providers that have a strategy of planning to support IPv6 when they need to? In other words, when they believe they're going to run out of v4 addresses?
Tell them that as of Thursday, IANA will have 0/8.
That's a rumor.
No, but the point I'm trying to make is there are many transit providers and many of their customers that have a mentality that they really don't need to do IPv6 until they're forced to. And they're not really forced to until they themselves run out of available v4 addresses. So especially end sites that have a population of users that is not growing, many of them say, why do I need to do v6 and why do I need to do it now?
That's the problem. So as Igor just whispered to me, the problem is they don't. And there's no reason for them. If you have X number of IP addresses in your hosting provider and you're not growing, or if you're growing slow enough to let the equipment swap out, keep the same number of addresses and support it, unfortunately the answer is you don't need to do v6. v4 is going to be around for a very, very, very long time. So what we do, what I do personally is I beat the drum, and everybody up here is beating the drum. I mean, we did this on our own time, and we're here, talking to 600 of our not-so-closest friends, trying to get everybody to do v6. This is despite the fact that, I'm not really pleased at v6, but we all want it to happen. End of day, there are going to be pockets of v4 forever and ever, and all we can do is get over the hump. If we can get enough v6 out there that v4 is the minority, then maybe they'll change even if they don't have to. And if they don't, then they'll just suffer the performance and other consequences.
So I'd like to say a couple of words on that front as well. What we've been saying to companies in that position is largely, even if you don't have to change your networks for your purposes because you've got enough address space, there will be more v6 only in the world. So there will be people trying to reach you starting from a v6 only network because there are growing networks elsewhere. That's not really compelling in the immediate business cycle, but it is at least a pointer to the long-term reasoning here. I don't think it does anything for companies making a decision about whether to try to come play in World IPv6 Day. I do hope that some of the stats that we collect then will start to paint a more compelling picture about the reality of v6 in the future. But none of it is a short-term argument.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is going to be that IPv4 is going to be with us for at least 10 years and probably 20 plus. So for the next year, if they don't have V6 in their planning cycle and they're not growing, okay, just please try not to break people who are doing tunnels or whatnot.
Remember, X.25 and PDP-11s are still in production.
So is DECnet.
Yeah, and they don't support IPv6.
Hi, again, Masato Yamanishi of Japan Telecom America. I'm afraid many things will happen on IPv6 day, actually. So I'm trying to figure out the impact of this day. And in Yahoo presentation, you said the ratio of broken user is decreasing. Is it measured on side door of Yahoo or measured on www.yahoo.com?
So the measurement is actually, there's two different measurements by two different people that I'm quoting. I'm not saying Yahoo numbers. So Lorenzo from Google has posted their numbers, and also Tori Anderson from Norway. The two numbers are so close that, two different measurements that are measuring the world that have basically the same stats. And it's between 0.026 and 0.024%. It's fluctuating.
So I look out here, and I've been coming to Nanog for a dozen years and stuff, and the number of Macintoshes has grown and grown and grown. And there's still only 20% or less of the market, and they are something like 80% of the brokenness on IPv6.
So
get them to fix it.
So they fixed quite a bit. Thank you, Apple, and select people within Apple with the very latest 10.6 update. The very nasty bug of 64 and RFC 1918 addresses has been fixed. And that alone dropped the brokenness from 0.051 to 0.026. Just that one fix alone.
But many broken user problem will happen from the combination of ISP, user network, user equipment, CP, like that. So fixing each device doesn't resolve the problem, I think.
Yes, you need to fix, like I said, you need to fix all the bugs. And something that we are very afraid of is that those are the stats with users, with 0.2% of the users who have IPv6 turned on. So something we've been thinking, and I'd love to bury my hand in the sand. But the question is really, if the percentage of users who are V6 enabled is the percentage of users who are V6 enabled really 0.226%, and 1 in 10 of the V6 aware users are actually broken? And if there's more IPv6 aware users, is there going to be more broken users, or if we can drop the number of broken users while increasing the number of working users?
Sorry, Jerry, remember everybody, we're not worried about people who are so broken that they can't get to V6. What we're worried about is somebody who thinks they're going to get on V6 and then they time out 60, 90, 120 seconds later. Because as far as the user is concerned, 120-second timeout is down. So if you don't have V6, or if your V6 is so broken that you can't even ask for a quad A or something like that, then you're actually not a problem to us right now. We're worried about people who ask for a quad A, think they can get to a quad A, try to get to a quad A, and then wait around while the user gets pissed off and spills coffee on their machine.
So Igor, this is Jared again. So one of the concerns that I have in setting the threshold where it is, that you're stating that it needs to be 0.01% of the users being broken.
I said at the very least 0.01.
I'd
actually want it lower.
I wish we could get security patch levels at that high of a level within organizations. And I'm sorry, Patrick, who almost spit coffee across all the attendees. But trying to aim for such a low threshold of brokenness, I think, is actually quite possibly an unreasonable expectation in this
outstanding idea. We'll create a botnet that infects all the users and fixes their V6.
If only we could create a botnet to turn on automatic patching on people's Windows machines as well. But unfortunately, there's various laws and regulations preventing us from doing that, which might be effective.
I think the thing that, and I'll say this since we don't actually have any V6 or V4 business, the thing that it comes back to is security of end hosts isn't actually impacting the business, isn't perceived to be impacting the business of major content providers, whereas the business decision makers are stopped by the perception that they are going to be breaking their service for a percentage of their customers. And unfortunately, we're not the room that gets to decide what that percentage is. So, I mean, I certainly take your point. I'm with you. But to my point in my slide, if V6 isn't perceived as working for the business decision makers, it's not going to happen.
And I certainly understand that reality. And part of that is us taking the lessons that we know here in technical information back and educating the people in our organizations and saying, look, you know, some amount of brokenness ultimately happens. There's lots of people who can't reach the internet because they have some crappy home DSL or cable router thing that's proxying their DNS requests and eats them.
But that affects Google and Yahoo.
And that affects everyone equally.
Exactly. This is the point of V6 Day, is to affect everyone equally.
Absolutely.
And by the way, a botted computer can still download AdWords.
So, yeah, I'm going to answer the question a little bit more directly. I myself believe that if you had asked me 6 months ago, I would have told you that the threshold isn't 0.01, it's 0.001. Remember, these are users who get to me perfectly fine over IPv4, and now I am going to do something that stops them from getting to me. I think that is wrong. And for a certain percentage, like 1 in 100,000, okay, you know, I've impacted 15,000 users globally. That's bad, and you know, those guys will have to find some workarounds. But 156,000 users because I decided that we should be handing out quad A's, that's a problem. So
the same argument could be made, though, for BCP38 compliance. By turning on unicast RPF, people break a variety of things. I understand that they're not directly equated to each other, but in setting where you're actually placing that decimal point has a significant impact, obviously, on the end user perception, but in getting people to fix things and do the right things, I think it's important that we not go and say, well, we're going to let people be so broken and yet still work that it's going to go and impact the rest of the industry and the opportunity for people to go to Jason and say, no, really, we actually do want IPv6, because these things are retarding the adoption of IPv6 in a number of markets.
So I'm not saying that we will not do dual stack with the current brokenness numbers. I am saying that there's no way in hell that we will do it without a whitelist.
So I think an important point in what you just said, Jared, was in comparing it to BCP38, the context there is not just the question of what is the public good, but also belief in the value of the outcome of deploying BCP, to adhering to BCP38. And implicitly then, what we're saying here is there isn't the business perceived value in deploying IPv6 yet, which comes back to Jason's question. So another side goal of World IPv6 Day and everything that we're doing this year with IPv6 is to try to demonstrate that, you know, there is more momentum behind IPv6, so that at some point the perceived value of supporting IPv6 will indeed outweigh whatever particular numbers, because the way that Igor phrased it was, he can't turn it on because he thinks it's right. So we need to get more business support for the value of IPv6.
You know, if you really want this to happen quickly, get Jason to install, or Jason or John or other people to install too few CGNs, so there's congestion and packet loss, and then people will see the value. Put another way, to go back to Leslie's point, $1 million a day is a lot of money even to Google.
And I'm going to echo a little bit on Patrick's comment. Remember, these are stats as measured against current working v4. If you break v4, or if you make v4 work worse, then the v6 brokenness numbers will look better.
Thank you very much.
That is how we're measuring. So when v4 starts to work worse, then the brokenness number will look better in relation to it, and then we're going to go, oh, there's very little penalty compared to v4 to v6. And at some point we're going to go, maybe we need to be doing whitelisting for v4 because v6 works so much better.
Thank you very much, folks. Thank you, everyone on the ISOC and Yahoo and Akamai. Once again, I encourage everyone to go view the ISOC site and look at the IPv6 World link. Check out the list of websites that are already Quad A enabled. Check out the ones that are participating, and speak to your coworkers and your employers and management and your end users and your content hosters, and encourage them to participate as well if they're so inclined. Next up we have Shyam. Why don't you? As our next speaker is coming to the podium, I just want to let you know a couple things for those of you that rolled in a little bit late today, a little bit sleepy today. Reminder to please fill out your surveys before the break, which is going to be after this next speaker. Get those surveys done this morning, so later on today we can go ahead and draw the name for a brand new Juniper EX series switch. What a great thing to have. Another thing is just another friendly reminder to please silence your cell phones while you're in the meeting room, out of courtesy for the speakers as well as the other attendees. And with that, I'm going to introduce Shyam from Mozilla Corporation, who's going to speak to us about DNSSEC.
Thanks.
You have your...
Yeah, I'm just going
to... Is it... Is it all different? Did you change it?
Yeah. Right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Shyam, and I'm not a morning person, especially after that awesome party last night. Back home in Singapore, I'm probably thinking about waking up around 10:30 in the morning. So I'm a systems admin for Mozilla, and we implemented DNSSEC for Mozilla.org towards the end of 2010, and just thought I'd share my experience with you guys. Just a little intro to Mozilla. We help make Firefox, which is the second most popular browser in the world. We've got about 400 million users today, which is coincidentally also the number of DNS queries we handle in a day across 3 public name servers. All right. Show of hands for people who were at the party last night. Come on, that's it? Okay, show of hands if you had fun at the party last night. Right. Show of hands if you've implemented DNSSEC. Nice. Show of hands if you were at the DNSSEC tutorial on Sunday by Mark. All right. The reason I asked that is the first part of the talk is going to cover some of the basics of DNSSEC. If you're at the tutorial, you would have already heard most of this. Then we'll go on to some of the implementation details and the mistakes you should not be making when you're thinking about DNSSEC. All right, so what exactly is DNSSEC? DNS security extensions, a bunch of changes to DNS that ensures that that helps you ensure that your data hasn't changed in transit, that helps you validate the source, and does something called authenticated denial of existence, which basically means that you have a surefire way of saying or knowing that a subdomain or domain doesn't exist. DNSSEC is based on public key cryptography. RFCs 403334 and 35 are the core documents that actually describe it, along with a bunch of supplementary RFCs. If you're new to DNSSEC, the Wikipedia article is an excellent place to start. Some of these concepts can be a little complex, but once you get your head around it, it's pretty simple to work through it. Why DNSSEC? Because, well, DNS is an excellent system, scales very well, but it wasn't created for today's world. So we've seen issues with DNS security attacks, cache poisoning, for example, and hopefully DNSSEC will help mitigate some of these things. So what exactly is new in DNSSEC? RFC 4034 explains these 4 new resource records that we have. I'll just run through them. DNS key is nothing but, so since DNSSEC is based on public key cryptography, you've got a private key that you store away safely and a public key that's distributed. And the DNS key record basically holds your public key. That's it. It's very simple. It holds your public key. A DS record or a delegation signer record is an interesting record because a DS record actually is nothing but a pointer to a DNS key record. It sits in your parent zone and contains something called a key tag or a key ID that is uniquely linked to your key and has a hash of the key and sits in the parent zone. So basically, a DS record for Mozilla.org would be in .org, will point to a specific key in Mozilla.org, and that's basically what a DS record is. An NSEC record is basically called Next Secure. This is what helps with the authenticated denial of existence. Say, for example, you do a lookup for bar.mozilla.org, and such domain does not exist. An NSEC record will reply with, well, the next secure record is foo.mozilla.org. And so the problem with NSEC was that you could actually run queries and find out all your existing domains, which you cannot do with DNS, but you could do that with DNSSEC. And that is why they came up with NSEC 3, which is basically the same thing, but the difference being the names are hashed. So you could still technically walk the tree, find out domains, but you're going to get hashed names, and so you can't really make much sense of them. It still authenticates that that domain doesn't exist. And RRSIG, or resource record signature, is what I'd like to consider as the glue, or this is what actually holds the signatures that can be verified. Not great at diagrams, but I would sort of look at it like that. DNS key, DS are are the records that do data integrity and origin authentication. NSEC does authenticated denial of existence. And RSIG records exist for all of these. DS, DNS, key, NSEC records, all of them have signatures. So, moving on, keys. Of course, since it's based on public key cryptography, as I've said, we have public and private keys. You store away the private keys safely. You distribute the public keys. You've got two types of keys. Key signing keys, as the name implies, sign other keys. And zone signing keys sign zones. The key signing key also signs the zone signing key. Now, in theory, we do not actually need multiple keys. You could do DNSSEC with just one key. But there are operational reasons as to why you would like different keys. As I said earlier, when I spoke about the DS and DS record, which points to DNS keys, assuming you have only one key, the DS record for this key sits in the parent zone, okay? Assuming this key is compromised, you're going to have to contact your parent and change that DS record every time, and this could possibly cause a break in your chain of authentication. I'll show you the chain of authentication soonish, but so that's the reason why you want to split your keys, make sure, and the other reason is zone signing keys can be changed at your whim and fancy. If you lose a zone signing key, it's easy, you can just change it. Your key signing key will sign the zone signing key, and you don't lose your chain of trust at all. There are a bunch of algorithms that you can use to generate your keys, but without going into too much detail, the most commonly used ones are probably algorithm number 5, RSA, and with the hash of SHA-1, and there's 7 with RSA, SHA-1, and SEC3, I guess. What is a rollover? Rollover is the process of changing your keys. DNSSEC does not mean you generate keys once and you keep signing forever. That's kind of not the idea. So you have rollovers where you probably, this is again decided by your own local policy. It could be 6 months for the KSK, a month for the ZSK. It all depends on what you decide and how you want to work it out. The operational practices RFC 4641 is an excellent read if you plan to implement DNSSEC. It explains some of these concepts in great detail. It also gives you a situation, explains a couple of situations where if you've lost keys or your keys have been stolen, what are the possibilities that you should think about. Just going to explain that a little better. Just give me a second. Okay. Is that readable for you guys, or? I'm not really sure if I should increase the font size. So this is basically something that will explain the relationships between the whole DNS key thing. Let me know if you can't read it. I'm just going to show you the short version first. So that's basically what it looks like. This is an excellent tool from Verizon called DNS Debugger, which actually runs through the whole chain of trust. As you can see, it goes from .to .org to Mozilla.org, verifies the whole chain that this record is actually valid. If you expand it a little further, I'll skip right down to this part where it says org refers to Mozilla.org. For Mozilla.org, one DS record found, and comes down here, says checking DS. So this is basically a DS record that sits in the parent domain, checks the DS record over here, which basically says in DS, this is the key tag 51618. You can see that corresponding DNS key here, 51618 as well. And then it continues down, it finds that this DS verifies the DNS key, finds two RR SIGs, 62879 is the zone signing key, comes further down, the zone signing key actually signs that RR SIG, and so it verifies that record. So going back, before you actually do DNSSEC, it's good if you check that your top-level domain is signed. It's not a must-have. It's a good-to-have thing because this means that you, like you saw on the previous slide, you have a complete chain of trust. If you don't do that, then you're something called an island of trust, which means you're separate, the root is separate, there's no real link. There are other ways to go about this. ISE has DLV. I'll let you guys look it up. It's called local-site validation. They sort of take the place of root. You put them as stuff, and you can validate. Check with your registrar about DNSSEC, because as I mentioned, DS records are a crucial part of this whole process. Your registrar is the only entity right now that can update your DS records. So they have to be DNSSEC compliant or be in a position to actually update your DS records. I say you might have to poke a bit because sometimes they say, for example, if you look at GoDaddy, they've got a web interface. You just put in your DS records, you're good. Some other registrars, you're going to have to email your DS records to them and make sure they update it. So the process is still sort of in flux. It depends. The URL there actually gives a list of registrars that do .org and is sorted by DNSSEC. Also, make sure your software works. You have to do your testing, or whatever DNS servers you use, bind, unbound, both of them actually support DNSSEC. Look at key signing software like OpenDNSSEC, figure out if that's going to be useful, and do your testing before you go ahead. This is what our setup looks like. It's a pretty simple setup. You've got our DNS configs go to source control, get pulled down by the name servers. And being sysadmins, we're pretty lazy about stuff, so you don't change much. You have a signer machine, which actually holds your keys. Sysadmins still commit to source control. The signer machine does the signing, puts it back into source control, which then filters down to the name servers. Bunch of stuff. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. So keygen is basically what generates the keys for you. I'd like to highlight the -FKSK. That is what denotes, sets something called an SEP bit or a secure entry point bit. That is what denotes a key signing key and says this is different from other keys. If you don't add that, the second line right there, that's basically a zone signing key. Set time, you can have multiple keys. You can decide when they go active and stuff like that, so that's what it's used for. Sign zone is what actually does your signing. The -S there is important because it's a cool feature. It's called smart signing. It looks at your whole list of keys. It decides what keys expire when, what is active, signs your zones according to that. And those are the changes you make to name.conf, enable yes, validation yes, point to a signed zone file. You should be good. At this point, you're serving signed zones. If you want to be a validating resolver, you'll have to add either managed keys and point to the root trust stuff or add trusted keys, and it should work. Steps to do things, that's what we did. We upgraded bind across the board, rebuilt bind 9.7 for RHEL5. When we did this, 6 wasn't out yet, it was still beta. But yeah, kick off the signers, DNS servers, pick up changes, yay, win. I'm going to skip this for now. I think we're a little short on time, so I'll come back to showing you some commands while I take questions. This is another excellent tool from Sandia National Labs. This is basically, again, beautifully shows the whole authentication chain, as you can see right from the root. I'm not sure if, yeah, you can still read that. So that's actually root's DNS key, filters down to .org's DNS key. The DS record for .org sits in root, DNS key, and that's our DS for Mozilla.org in the .org zone. And that's our DNS key that you saw, 51618, filters down to our zone signing key, 62897, and then finally sign stuff. So this is really useful for you to ensure that your stuff is correctly set up and working. As you can see, it shows you the whole authentication chain, delegation status, secure to .org, to .org, and .org to Mozilla.org. So things that you have to be careful about. Your keys are everything. Protect them. You don't want to be losing your keys. Gets you into all sorts of trouble. Make sure you have a backup plan both at the deployment stage and for scenarios later. What happens if someone breaks into your signer machine? What happens if you actually accidentally lose private keys? These are situations you have to plan for, because with DNSSEC, you do run the risk of your entire domain being unreachable. If there is a security, if you've enabled DNSSEC, and if there's a problem in the validation chain, right now, today, it's not an issue, but eventually in the future at some point, if the chain is broken, then your zones are completely unreachable. Always sign zones, publish zones, and then push your DS records, at least for the first time. It's pretty crucial. Note that your network equipment might need changes. We had cases where our Cisco and sometimes I think even Juniper, I'm not the network guy, but yeah, we had issues where DNSSEC increases the amount of data that it sends out because of all the signatures and all that. So we had stuff that would truncate responses. So that little snippet helped us out with that. Boo-boos, security lameness. I did the reverse. What happened was I sent out the DS records to our registrar and said, hey, we'd like this pushed out. I expected it would take about 24 hours, and my downtime was in the latter half of 12 hours to push out stuff. But it went live in the first 12 hours, and, well, so we weren't signed for a bit. So as soon as the DS goes out, validating resolvers look at the DS and say, hey, we expect a DNS key for Mozilla.org, but the Mozilla.org name servers do not have a DNS key, hence they're not secure. And that's exactly what happened. Log levels are another thing. The default log levels in bind for DNSSEC are set to debug. We filled up disk pretty fast in like less than a week, so you might want to watch out for that and change it. Of course, Twitter, everyone fails you. Mozilla.org has a DNSSEC problem, mark them as insecure, and Mozilla.org unreachable, should be signed, says .org, but isn't, not good. But yeah, I got around to fixing that pretty soon. Moving forward, I'm sure this is sort of a chicken and egg thing, just like IPv6. It's just that we don't have any validating resolvers. We don't have enough clients that actually use them. So we looked at it from the perspective of, let's go ahead and implement this because this is good. And you guys should think about it in that way as well because, well, you know, more security, more win for the users. From a Firefox perspective, although this is not an official position, there's been discussion within the IT team that we should have a DNSSEC validator inside Firefox that, for example, checks our update URLs, make sure that you don't depend on the OS. The browser itself will actually validate where it's connecting to get its updates. There was someone here who was speaking to me yesterday, Suresh, I think. They actually have a patch that they plan to submit to Mozilla to actually have DNSSEC validation in the browser. So that's pretty awesome. And finally, you can have graphs. The first graph is actually the number of queries we actually do. This was hacked up in the last week, so it's sort of still in flux. But that's the number of queries we do a minute. The second graph next to that is the first one's DNS, the second one is DNSSEC. And as you can see, the second one is missing a K. So it's basically nothing. Third graph combines both. DNSSEC is just flatlined down there. Really, really insignificant at this point. So thanks. I'll be happy to take questions. If you have any, feel free to email me as well. And
no questions?
Ooh. Either I was that good or that bad.
I think, no, I think you were that good. That's wonderful. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
No, it's okay.
Awesome.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you once again. So, folks, we are going to go ahead and break for our morning coffee. I know everyone needs it to unthicken the head a little bit. So we'll be back here at 11:30 for the next round of talks. Thank you very much.